The Code Council is the recognized leader in building codes, so who better to guide the process of developing new standards?
Codes provide the minimum level of performance, really what the expectation is. What are you trying to provide? And then the standards provide the technical basis of how to actually achieve that.
But the standards don't write themselves. They require real-world input and expertise. They require you.
Going through the code development process, we recognize that there are some gaps in standards that currently exist. And so being able to bring together our stakeholders in a standards development process really helps to support the codes and the safety mission of the Code Council.
So, how does the standards process work? The first step is simple. Identify a need.
This industry's been around for decades, but it's been very regional, very fractionalized, and we realized that we needed to start developing some industry standards. About that same time, we approached the Code Council, and they realized the word modular is not in the building codes. So we needed some resources for code officials.
Once a need is identified, the Code Council goes to work.
When a standards project is identified, it is brought forth to the Code Council's Board of Directors for their ultimate approval. Once they approve of that, the standards project begins. We will put out a call for committee. The call for committee is going to look for folks of various interest categories. For instance, manufacturers, builders, testing laboratory. All these folks we would like to apply to these standards committees so we can get a balanced committee.
What we wanted was stakeholders who wanted to share their thoughts and opinions, and the Code Council made that very easy to work with.
When I started working for the state a few years back and started really looking into the off-site construction industry, I kept hearing over and over again that there was no standard. Everybody did something a little bit different. And about that time is when I started hearing they were putting together a committee to develop standards for off-site construction. And I just thought that was a great idea and went ahead and put my application in immediately.
Once a committee is selected, the work of writing the standard begins.
The board will appoint committee members. At that time, we will assemble the committee and we will create an initial draft of the standard. When the initial draft is developed, it is then put out for a public comment period. The committee will adjudicate the comments, and they can either agree with the comment, they may agree with the comment in principle but modify it slightly, or they may disapprove of the comment. In either respect, a committee reason will be submitted to the commenter. If the commenter is not satisfied with committee action, the commenter has the rights to appeal in accordance with our written appeals process.
The standard that I'm most involved in is the ICC 500 Storm Shelter Standard. I'm on the committee and I'm chair of Chapter 3, the structural chapter. FEMA has also proposed changes to that standard. I think the last update we proposed over 40 changes, and most of them got through, some of them didn't.
When the public review period is completed, the standard is finished, and we're at a point where we can submit to ANSI as an American national standard and for eventual reference in the I-codes.
Key to the entire process is stakeholder participation.
Being at the table, when the standards are being developed is really the best way to assure that your perspectives, your interests are captured within the final standard itself.
It doesn't require you to go hire a lobbyist or a lawyer or have an abundance of resources. It does require your time commitment and sharing freely of your ideas.
When you participate on a standards committee, this is your opportunity to actually drive your industry.
Well, we think it's extremely important for the industry to participate in these standards. If we're not providing that input, someone else is going to write the standards and regulations for our industry, and that's not a good recipe for success.
Participating in the standards development process has benefited me just seeing from behind the scenes how that process works, and you'll make some great relationships and business contacts that you can learn from.
I think being a part of the standards process is really rewarding, especially when you know something needs to change that could help a community survive better after an event. And when you get that standard change proposal in there, then it's really rewarding to know that you've made a difference and you're potentially even saving lives just by being involved in this process.
To learn more about the standards process and how to participate, go to iccsafe.org/standards.